she's having a really crappy day, and it's absolutely terrifying to be Elvira.
Oh, the horror.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle of the scary old card and compliance.
Ooh, I'm so scared.
Guess what? It is Halloween.
All Hallows Eve.
Yeah, so we actually have had several people say, I can't wait for your Halloween episode.
I know it's starting to grow just a little bit. So I think this will be different. Well, I know it will be because, we'll get to that in a minute.
Because it will be.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you've not listened to the past episodes, you probably would do well to go back and listen to them. It's pretty good stuff, scary stories about things that happened. This one's going to be a little different. But before we dive into that, Donna.
Yes.
What else you got going on?
Well, based on when this one's coming out, I've got the Georgia Association of Orthopedic Executives on November 10th and Georgia HFMA Care Forum on November 13th. And then we're cruising into 2018. So hopefully I can, I'm doing all my private consultations, not public ones after that.
I'm not going to say anything.
I know, really? I was trying to give it to you. I gave you an easy one.
I know. So Donna and I, we shout out to George Fenton.
Yes.
Is it Fenton? George? Did I mess his name up?
Probably, but...
George. Anyway.
George.
I have a client with last name Fenton, so maybe I mixed them. Anyway, so George had us speak yesterday to his group in Washington County, Oregon, I believe it is. Mm-hmm. And so Donna covered the privacy rule. I covered the security rule. And we did this in 5 minutes. So it was really quick. But I had to take a poke at Donna on the call because, she was covering the privacy parts.
Yes.
The private parts.
Private parts. Yuck, yuck, yuck.
Anyway, that's my fun for the day.
Yeah. And yesterday. So
I
we
know.
had a twofer.
So, anyway, you ready to dive in?
I can't wait to hear how this works out.
Okay, so you gave me some homework to do. You said write a scary story for the episode. So, there has been a well-thought-out, well-drafted horror story to go with today's episode.
Now, is this a horror movie? This script like you're supposed to?
No, this, I broke, I never do what I'm told anyway, so I broke completely from what you asked me to do on that. And no, this is completely all just made up stuff.
Yeah, it's all made up. All right.
Mm-hmm,
you made this up.
Yeah, I completely made it up. The whole thing. So it's kind of my version of a day in the life of a practice manager.
Compliance.
Compliance manager.
About compliance, right?
Mm-hmm. And her name is Elvira. A fitting name for a story.
Yeah, okay. How about it?
So, if I can do this without laughing. Everybody pull up, get, around the campfire, tell some ghost stories.
Hold your flashlights up in your face.
Yep. There's no ghost in this one, though. But anyway, are you ready?
Ready.
All right. So it started out as a great day for Elvira as she looked out the window after waking up. The sky was blue, the sun was shining, the birds were chirping, all was well. With coffee brewing, she opened up her email app on her phone to see what came in overnight. The first message that caught her attention was one from a doctor about a call that he'd received last night. The doctor explained that a patient that he knew personally had called to complain. The patient insisted that he had gotten a call from a billing company last night asking for payment in full of a balance on her account. The patient was outraged that someone would call her home at night and demand credit card payment to cover a large balance that hadn't even been processed by the insurance company yet. What is going on? The doctor wants to know. He must call the patient first thing in the morning, and she has to tell her. Elvira has to find out what's going on. What?
Okay, so, David, that sounds really close. Almost spot on. We'll say that is a true story.
No,
You're not making that up.
No, I made it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Well, it also happened then to somebody else in the real world, not in your brain. So in the real world, practice in San Antonio, Texas, experienced that same problem. They had just this year. Mm-hmm. Patients were called and told to pay up an outstanding balance by an unknown person, willing to take their credit card information, though. Very helpful. However, the practice never does that. They don't do that. So, you sure? Because that is a scary story to hear that your patients' credit cards are being taken to pay balances for your practice in your name. I'm wondering if maybe the data breach they also reported had something to do with it. Well, I'm sorry. They said they believe that it may be unrelated, but they also had people in there, unauthorized access to their server.
Oh, okay.
So you're going to stick with you made it up.
That does sound eerily similar to my story. But no. So I'm moving on. Okay?
All right. So Elvira.
Elvira
experiences the same unknown data breach, scary event, and I can't imagine how Elvira must feel.
Yeah, she's very unnerved by this because she has to find out what's going on. Right. So anyway, as I continue, so before getting out the door, a call comes in from the office. So here she is. She's just dressed and ready to go out the door. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, gets a phone call. A rental car company has called to say they found papers of information on 10 of their patients in the back seat of a car that was returned yesterday. What?
Oh, no.
In the rental car. Can you believe that? In the rental car.
In a random rental car.
Yes.
Yeah. So you were stretching when you made that one up, right?
Yeah.
No, you didn't read the news story. It was in Atlanta, so I guess that's too far away for you.
So you're going to tell me this happened to you?
I'm going to tell you this happened. It happened in the ATL. Would you believe that?
Everything happens in
I know, really. We just have a lot of cool stuff. A former clinic employee kind of snagged apparently a bunch of people's data because the stolen medical records were found in the backseat of a rental car. And guess what? They didn't even learn about it until the rental car company called them. And guess what? It was a short-term employee, one that hadn't been with them for a very long time at all. Yeah, so I'm wondering if they did the background checks. You know how we talk about, we just talked about onboarding and termination, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, but you're sure this one is one you made up too?
Yes, again, eerily similar, but not the same story.
All right, so medical records in the back of a rental car. David is genius.
Yes.
And he may need to start being a risk manager.
Exactly.
We'll just have him write more horror stories. So Elvira's day keeps getting worse.
It's getting worse. Yes, if I can keep going in my story without this interruption of reality here. So now back to my story. Mm-hmm. So with screeching tires, she drives back to the office. Then a call comes in from the tech help desk. You know she's perturbed by now.
Yes, a little bit. She's tense.
Yes. So guess what? The restore after the ransomware attack that they had noticed last night didn't restore the x-rays that were needed for a surgery that's happening this morning. No one seems to know what to do. Now, here's what the tech guy said. Quote, except for a relatively limited set of patients, our patient information database was not affected by the ransomware. However, imaging files such as x-rays and other documents such as attachments were impacted. While our investigation into the matter continues, it does not appear that patient information was stolen from our system. However, they love using that word. However, the ransomware has rendered the imaging files and documents inaccessible. Dun, dun, dun. Based on our present investigation, it also appears that ransomware rendered all electronic patient data inaccessible pertaining to visits within approximately 3 weeks prior to the incident, because we are unable to determine the reasonable certainty whether or not the perpetrators placing the ransomware on our systems access patient information, and due to the impact of the availability of the images and other files, we are providing you with notification of this incident. So
Elvira.
Are you can you I'm trying to get through my story.
Plagiarism, man. Plagiarism.
What are you talking about?
I can tell you went to school in South Carolina.
Look at him.
Yeah.
So what are you going to tell?
That's verbatim.
Right, so
that's verbatim.
It is not verbatim.
Right,
I made this up. How are you telling me this is verbatim? You're gonna tell me this happened too?
It did.
Oh my God.
It's not just in Elvira's day. It's happened in the real world. In the real world. And this happened in Arkansas.
Go ahead, Razorbacks.
There you go. The Arkansas thing happened when, there's a hacking thing that occurred. And so one would say that, the fact that it says verbatim what's in their announcement, I would think that maybe you read it and happened to write it down exactly the same way.
It had to be something that just maybe stuck in my mind if I had seen it somewhere, maybe in the past.
Maybe.
I just can't see that happening though.
So this is one of those cases where somebody's hit by ransomware and they can't figure out how the ransomware got in, and they lost data that they didn't have properly backed up.
Ooh.
So they didn't meet the confidentiality, integrity, and availability requirements, and they've had to notify their patients.
That's never good.
Never. It's never, ever good. And you can go to the website of the practice and read the information and everything, and it's verbatim data. It's scary. It's scary.
It might have been my ESPN working. Just saying.
All right, so Elvira, there is nothing about Elvira's day that is going well.
Right.
And
yes,
nothing.
She is now arriving at the office, if I may continue again. You're killing me with the interruptions.
Okay. Poor Elvira.
Okay, so.
Poor Elvira. She's looking haggard at this point.
I know. She's, I think she's probably ended up riding into work with her hair undone and coffee spilled all. She's probably still got her slippers on. So Here we go. So she walks in the door of the office and the nursing supervisor brings a news story to her. A nurse has just been convicted of stealing PHI and filing over $1 million in fraudulent tax returns. Then Elvira thinks, this nurse did work for us at one time a few years ago.
Oh,
no! What's funny about that?
Again with you. Again.
Seriously?
You can't even give a little bitty detail.
Seriously,
without
you're
stealing it.
No. Seriously, you cannot tell me.
You
ever heard this?
You a thief, brother. You a thief. It is absolutely true in Florida. Yeah. See, we're getting around. We're amazingly covering all parts of at least the South in your wicked fun here. Yuck. But there is a nurse who was found guilty after a 3-day trial. 3 whole days they had her on trial. She worked as a nurse in a nursing home. And when they figured out it was her, and her husband apparently involved in this fraudulent tax scheme. They took her car after they arrested her. You know, they get to do that, and searched it. And guess what they found?
Money.
Well, they found a notebook full of all the identifiable information of 150 different people. 26 of them patients at the nursing home where she worked. So, not quite sure where she got the others. The important part is it was at the nursing home. Now, they weren't playing around, man. They got the money from those refunds they found. They paid their mortgage. They got the cars fixed. They had some personal expenses. I don't know where all they went, but they would file the return like within days of the patient entering the nursing home. Yeah. So guess what? Faces the sentencing still has to happen, but a maximum of 20 years in prison for wire fraud, 10 years in prison for theft of government funds, all these other kind of things. And they haven't even talked about using the HIPAA law against her. I don't know what's going to finish there. But yeah, you stole again, brother. You stole again.
I mean, I'll admit the story sounds similar, but you know, your version is a little more detailed than what I have in my story. I'm just going to say, don't know that this is the same. So
Elvira has people calling the patients demanding money on the credit cards that they don't know where they're coming from.
Yep, started out that way.
Yeah, that. And then the rental car has the patient records in the back seat when it's returned. And you don't know anybody that rented a rental car.
Right.
And x-rays now are inaccessible because of a ransomware attack.
That's right.
And a nurse who's known to steal patient records for identity theft and fraudulent tax returns is now in the news after being convicted and used to work for you. Elvira used to work for Elvira, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So she's having a really crappy day, and it's absolutely terrifying to be Elvira.
Oh, the horror.
All right. So what happens in Elvira's life?
If you ain't scared, this is about to do it. Here we go.
All right.
So, see if I can make it the rest of the way without your rude interruptions. Okay. So, she gets to her desk, right?
Yeah.
And as she gets to her desk, there's a note that's taped up on her screen. It said that the investigation that they did yesterday to determine that an employee's email account has been definitely hacked and used to send spam. And it turns out that while the email was encrypted, when it was sent, all the patient data was accessible once the hacker successfully logged into the hacked account.
Really?
Yes. I mean, does it get any... What?
You added a little of your own flair maybe to the details. But that happened here.
Really?
Here. Yeah, it did.
You're going to have to provide
I think
documentation.
that I'm reading things. We're so connected that when I read these things, they fall into your brain and scare you. Because in this case, 1,300 patients' data they were notified their data could have been in this email account that was indeed hacked. And so it doesn't mention about the encrypted email, but that was a nice little flair you added there because everybody thinks they're going to be okay. When you slip out the back door and you think you're getting away from the villain, and then you learn that the villain was waiting outside for you. It always happens to somebody named Tammy or Debbie or Bobby. But that feeling of confidence that your encryption in your email is safe and you don't have to worry about using PHI in email is wrong and scary.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're hacked and they're If they're in the email account, they're in the email account. So they got to all the PHI. So yet again, it's a real story. So where are you going with this? Because you just piled on poor Elvira every scary thing that's happened in the last couple of months, maybe, that I've read that fell into your head. When you weren't listening, you may have been listening.
Okay, so my completely original story shall continue now.
Okay.
So, this is the point of the story as you're writing, that you want to kind of get to the climactic ending,
Yes, because it's a short story.
It is a short story, thank goodness, because I'm not sure how many more interruptions I could take. You asked me to write you a story, I wrote you a story, and all you do is complain the whole time.
I know, because you cheat. You steal.
Okay.
From my brain.
Listen,
all right, so Elvira's having a crappy day.
Stolen from your brain.
It is scary up in there, I'll tell you that.
So she's having a bad day. Everything's going wrong, right?
Yeah, at this point, she's in tears, right? She cried.
She's, to the point of just going home, quit her job, all those things, all those bad things. Yeah. Go back to bed, whatever it takes.
That's where they ship you off into a little padded room.
Yes.
You had a
she
day
is
with
there.
all of those things.
She is there.
She's in the padded room.
So do you picture it? You got it pictured? Yeah. She's there. Sure. She's frazzled. She's going nuts. Like she's like taking stuff off her desk and throwing it against the wall, the whole 9 yards. And just as her head is literally about to explode, she's jolted awake and realized it was all just a nightmare.
It's your nightmare on
Healthcare Street.
Healthcare Street. There we go. You have created your proper scary Halloween story.
So there, I did. Absolutely. I took all of what I could muster within me and my creative juices. Yeah. and created a completely original work of art for the listeners.
For you and Elvira and us.
Yes.
Poor Elvira. I was worried about her. I thought you were going into some horrible place where Elvira took it out on everybody around her, but it sounds like, thankfully, Elvira jolted awake and all she's been doing is reading the news, like me.
Yeah, and worst yet, she found out that it was Sunday morning, so she didn't have to go to work.
Oh, that tequila will get you every time, won't it?
It will. So anyway, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to write and read my work of art for you.
So while I appreciate you sharing, Elvira, those stories are indeed terrifying stories that have all come out recently in the news. And we could normally cover them anyway. So it is scary. That's a whole new scam for them to steal your patient information and call up your patients asking them to pay their bills. Do you know how many people probably fell for that and gave them a credit card number?
Yeah, probably a lot.
Mm-hmm. I know. I have a long list of people in my family that probably would have fallen for it and been... Oh, I'm so sorry. I had that bill. I didn't know. And, and the criminals, they're so nice about it while they take your money, but they were nice.
Can you give me a list of the family members? Christmas is coming.
Oh, you're so fun. And that rental car thing? Yeah, it really did happen. The woman stole patient information and used it to rent the car.
Wow.
She rented the car with a stolen patient ID and then proceeded to, I'm pretty sure that she didn't intend to leave the medical records in the back.
Oh, yeah. I mean, of all things that happen in the backseat of a rental car. Who would have thought that?
I know. Of all the stories that they can tell of what they found in a rental car, that's usually not one of them. But can you imagine that you get the call? It's your office. And you get a call from the rental car company because it has your name on it. So there's no ifs, ands, or buts where the medical records came from. And you, like Elvira, would freak out because you're already freaking out because of the patients being called, right, Elvira?
Mm-hmm. I am not Elvira.
Delvira.
There you go. Maybe we should change your name to Elvirus.
Oh, there you go. That should have been the name you went with, Elvirus.
That's her last name starts with S. So, Elvirus.
Well, or we have someone that is, I know what the name is. Do you know?
No.
My name is, and I'm here to serve you.
Oh, Consuela.
Consuela del Virus.
That sounds like a perfect name.
That's it. And so Consuela del Virus is suffering through a horrible day when we put all this together and turn it into our own short story with sound effects. So know that it is true that they will steal things and use them to rent cars and then leave them as gifts for you to get that call first thing in the morning. And whether it's Monday morning or Friday morning, either way, I wouldn't want to get that call.
Mm-mm.
No. And then to know that your ransomware attack actually caused all the people that say, oh, well, you just wipe and restore after a ransomware attack. It's not very helpful in so many ways, especially if you can't restore everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the big things in all of our ransomware episodes that we talk about. It's why you have to do an investigation. And it's why you need to report to patients if you can't be sure that someone doesn't know their information. And you know what? Stealing, didn't we talk about that in the Chinese that need to come to the U.S. have to have a clear X-ray, and so they steal X-rays. So don't think that wouldn't be valuable for the.
Did you see the statistic that came out? I think it was last week that ransomware has gone up 2,500% since last year.
The demand for it on the darknet, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, which I'm just waiting because we haven't had a huge attack since NotPetya.
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting for a big one to spread, and it's about time. The holidays, they'll start spreading at the end of the year. Everybody
Merry
gets
Christmas.
busy.
Merry Christmas.
Everybody gets busy. They stop paying attention to their fishing, or they go to buy something at the websites, and that's where we get hit.
Yeah, you'll start getting a lot of the Amazon scams.
Yeah. So that's why we use the garden fishing trip to try to get you ready for it. But over the course of Consuela del Virus's day, Elvira's day, the experience of constantly sinking into quicksand must have been horrible when the information about the nurse being convicted, which of course that also was just released recently in the Tallahassee courtroom, $1 million in fraudulent tax returns. $1 million using patient information. When everybody says, what do they do with this? Well, that's the most simple one right there.
Yeah,
because they have everything they need to do it.
I think I told the story too when we covered this before, but I think last year, I believe it was, when I filed my taxes, my accountant called me and said, has somebody already claimed one of your sons? And I'm like, I don't think so. And they're like, yeah, they did. So,
did you ever find out how that happened?
No, never found out how it happened. I fortunately have an accountant, so just kind of put him on the fighting for getting the return I needed. But there was no other information to go on to find out how in the world my 15-year-old son's information was somewhere that somebody could claim the tax return for him.
Well, it's probably somebody filed his own return as if he was an adult, and he is not.
Thinks he is.
So that then takes us to the compromised email account, and again, if now this report says that unauthorized access to an employee email account had suspicious activity. So you're not really sure what's going on with, quote, suspicious activity. I'm sure that anytime you would see David around your office, you should question what suspicious activity is going on. But they're having to provide notification because of this. And it does go to speak to anyway that if strong passwords, very important, not playing around with that. And one of the things that happens is if somebody uses the same password in multiple places, somehow their password gets on some list, and then somebody figures out, oh, wait, they work here. Let me try it there. And guess what? It works. And so that's why you don't mix. There's no mixing of work and personal passwords, please. And if you have the encrypted email, do not assume, because we know about assume. We know what assume does. In this case, in a big way, because if you're not worried about making sure that your accounts aren't getting hacked, then there is no way that you can feel comfortable that you're okay with email. And
should be changing those passwords periodically would help.
Or two-factor authentication.
Yep, that's good too.
Strong passwords that aren't 8 characters long. They need to be longer than 8, and the two-factor authentication is key. And there's a long list of things. Google just announced today they have a way that you can, for people that have really important information, journalists and politicians and such, where they are a target, they are giving them additional tools to lock things down. But guess what they said? You'll give up convenience because security's not convenient.
Yep.
So all of that is scary enough for me. I don't know about you there, David.
I have been thoroughly scared.
Scared yourself, didn't you?
I was really scared.
Scared.
Yep. So I'm there again. Glad that you could find actual cases to go along with my story.
Yeah, you did a really great job of making something up.
I did.
Yeah.
I thought so.
Yeah, and we all know who made that up. You just did a good job reading it. Go on. I went along with it because, I don't know. It sounded fun.
But how can I act like I did something here? Yes, I'll admit Donna wrote the story. Shut up.
It was his idea how to read it. That's it. That's right. Well, it's another good day, and now we head into the holidays, into the November, December time frame when things go nuts. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we do to get through the end of the year.
Yep. So we won't have a Thanksgiving episode or Christmas episode, I don't think. But
you never know with us, do you?
No, but one thing you have to remember, though, is that even though we're going into the busy time of year and all that, you just said a while ago, Donna, you can't drop your guard. You got to remember, the people that are out there trying to do bad things are going to just ramp it up during this time of year. So keep listening to the podcast. Keep being diligent. We didn't mention it in the beginning, but don't forget that we do have a way if you want to contribute to the podcast. You can go to helpmewithhipaa.com/give, and you can donate there to help keep the lights on, so to speak. Of course, today's show notes will be at the website at helpmewithhipaa.com. You can get all the show notes and links to the stuff that Donna says goes along with the story. I'm not really sure if it does or not. And all that good stuff. So anyway, what else, Donna? Got anything else?
That's it.
We're good to go. All right. Well, thanks for listening to the story and listening to this episode. We really appreciate it. If you found it valuable, share it out. Go to helpmewithhipaa.com/give and throw $1 or $2 our way. We'd love that as well. We appreciate you listening. Have a safe Halloween. And for Donna and myself, remember that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.